Why is China willing to spend $167 billion to block one of the biggest rivers born in the Himalayas? Is this the energy solution of the future, or a geological risk no one can truly calculate? If the Three Gorges Dam was the symbol of the last century, then this mega project is a completely new power play. It's not just massive in scale, it sits on some of the most dangerous and sensitive fault zones on Earth. This isn't simply a hydropower plant, it's control over water, something that can shape the fate of an entire region. Stay with me to the end, because the real question isn't whether they can build it, it's this. When the flow is altered, what happens to the livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people downstream? For decades, the Three Gorges Dam stood as a monument to China's engineering muscle. Record-breaking electricity, colossal concrete, and one clear national message: we build. But now, at the edge of the Himalayas, China is pushing its ambition even further. The lower Yarlung Tsangpo Hydropower project at the river's dramatic turn, known as the Great Bend. So why is the Great Bend so irresistible? The river moves calmly across the Tibetan Plateau, then suddenly whips into a sharp turn and plunges as much as 2,000 meters in a short stretch. That drop is like a gigantic natural waterfall, a pressure-packed battery that nature seems to offer up for the taking, almost like endless power, just waiting to be tapped. But anything that valuable is also brutally unforgiving. This is one of the most remote and extreme places on Earth. Roads barely reach it, and construction turns into a logistical puzzle that can feel almost beyond human limits. And yet, the sheer ambition is staggering. The target is 60 gigawatts of capacity, roughly 300 billion kilowatt hours per year. That's more electricity than many countries produce in a year combined, and about 3 times the capacity often compared to the Three Gorges scale in public discussion. And at $167 billion, this is not a traditional dam. It's a vast, complex hydropower system, multiple stations, and gigantic tunnels drilled straight through Himalayan rock. The concept is to route an enormous volume of water through turbines at extreme speed, then return the flow toward the downstream river. If you're asking, how do you even dare to build something this big in a place where earthquakes feel routine? Then you found the project's biggest risk. This region is shaped by violent tectonic collisions. Its history includes devastating quakes. Imagine trying to anchor a civilization-scale project among near-vertical slopes, permafrost, and landslides that can trigger without warning. In reality, they're not just building a structure, they're placing a colossal wager inside a mountain range that is still moving. So why push forward anyway, with risks that extreme? Because for China, this isn't only about electricity, it's a national strategic chess piece. In a technocratic mindset, especially when economic growth slows and stimulus becomes urgent, the instinct is simple: build. A project this large sends a shockwave through steel, cement, heavy machinery, and employment for tens of thousands. But beyond short-term stimulus, it serves a long-term objective: energy self-reliance. In a world where whoever controls power controls economic leverage, this becomes a massive energy lever to feed the most electricity-hungry industries of the future. In other words, it's a bet on infrastructure to lock in great power status, turning the force of a river into a backbone for a 21st century economy. You can see the debate play out online. Some people watch analyses and immediately call it propaganda. It's not a dam, it's tunnels, or Western media is fear-mongering. Others hear $167 billion and see red flags: corruption, forced resettlement, environmental damage. That split matters because it reflects a larger argument about China itself. One side looks at outcomes. When a government delivers visible material improvement, it earns a kind of legitimacy, this feeling that the state has your back. The other side focuses on what gets traded away: local voices, independent oversight, and the ability to say no when a project cuts through your land. And this is the moment the dam stops being just concrete. It becomes a test of how China manages trade-offs. In a centralized planning system, mega projects can move faster than those slowed by lawsuits, land disputes, and endless permits. But that speed comes from the same source: the state's ability to decide, compensate, relocate, and continue. Even in everyday life, these trade-offs show up as policy. Take the hukou system, China's household registration framework. It once restricted movement far more aggressively, and even today it still shapes access to services like schools, healthcare, insurance, and housing. You can move, you can relocate, but the social safety net can remain tied to where you officially belong. It's a reminder that development isn't only dams and railways. It's the rules that determine who fully gets access to a better life and when. So when China proposes a mega project in Tibet, the question isn't just how do you pour the concrete, it's also who gets consulted, who gets moved, who gets paid, and who gets to keep their way of life. If the answers stay behind closed doors, the engineering might still succeed, but the legitimacy gap widens. And on a river connected to India and Bangladesh, that legitimacy gap turns into a security risk. Because the real controversy begins where the river keeps flowing. The Yarlung Tsangpo doesn't end at the Great Bend. It leaves China, becomes the Brahmaputra in India, then flows into Bangladesh before reaching the Bay of Bengal. Will seasonal flows change? Will sediment drop? Will downstream farming and ecosystems get shocked into instability? Some experts warn that a significant share of the Brahmaputra system's fertile sediment is tied to this canyon region. Sediment isn't dirt. It builds farmland, feeds deltas, and keeps river ecosystems alive. And here's where fear fills the information vacuum. Downstream governments want data timelines, operating details, and real-time sharing. But China's major dam projects have long been criticized for opacity, especially in the eyes of neighboring countries. If you want a real-world example of why this matters, look at the Mekong. Over the past 2 decades, upstream dams have altered the river's rhythm. Many downstream communities describe sudden water rises and drops that no longer match traditional seasons. When the seasonal flood pulse gets distorted, fish breeding cycles shift, farming calendars fall out of sync, and people whose lives depend on water get trapped in uncertainty. Even far away, peak floods can be reduced. Near the dams, the swings can become sharper and harder to predict. Now bring that back to the Himalayas. When India hears mega project on a sensitive cross-border river, it doesn't just hear electricity, it hears leverage. China says the post-project outflow will be broadly comparable to today, and that the design is not meant to create a massive reservoir for weaponizing water. But without a real mechanism for real-time data sharing, trust doesn't appear on its own. And India has already signaled responses, planning major downstream projects of its own to protect itself and control risk. Then there's the human cost. Mega dams reshape landscapes. They can force communities to relocate, sever traditional livelihoods, and transform habitats. China has done relocation on a massive scale before. Three Gorges is a famous example. Supporters argue that compensation and development follow. Critics argue that culture, consent, and ecosystems get sacrificed for megawatts. So what's the truth? It's not as simple as hero engineers or evil empire. This is the collision of 3 forces. First, a hydropower jackpot that nature created. Second, a national model that often solves problems by building. Third, a cross-border river system where millions of livelihoods depend on water cycles that don't care about political lines. If China pulls it off, it's a statement. We can reshape rivers and generate near-limitless clean power for the climate era. If it goes wrong because of earthquakes, environmental damage, or geopolitical mistrust, the cost won't be contained inside one canyon. So here's the final question. Is the Great Bend Project a masterpiece of energy for the age of climate change, or the starting point of a new era of water tension across Asia? Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next mega project.